On April 14th at around 1:45 a.m., 28-year-old Katie Holley from Florida was startled awake by a strange sensation. Disoriented, she could feel that something was seriously wrong with her ear, so she got out of bed to inspect it in the bathroom. As she staggered across the floor, there was an eerie sensation of fullness in her head. Once in her bathroom, she grabbed a Q-tip and slowly pushed the cotton bud inside her ear to check what was in there. But then, to her horror, something moved. It wouldn't be wrong to say that whatever was in her ear was alive, and that gentle push from the swab had now caused it to move deeper inside.
Isn't poking around in your ear like the number one thing you're not supposed to do with Q-tips?
Yes, it's... oh, Grill, you look awful.
Yeah. I must have blacked out, eating myself into a candy coma in bed last night.
Well, that sounds like a great way to have insects crawl inside your ear.
What?
Katie felt something moving inside her left ear. Her brain rampaged with all the worst possible scenarios that could unfold. With shaking hands, she carefully took the cotton bud out of her ear, dreading what creature might come along with it. And there it was, 2 skinny brown sticks. She took a breath of relief that it wasn't a creature, but when she observed them closely, that false peace was soon replaced with panic.
Why? It's just some random junk.
Well, Grill, what happens when you squash an insect?
It breaks into pieces. Oh, God!
The reason Katie started hyperventilating was because she realized they weren't just 2 brown sticks on the cotton swab. They were legs.
But what kind of legs? There's so many things that have legs, Brew.
In a panicked state, Katie called out for her husband, Jordan, who immediately shot out of the bed and searched frantically for his glasses. After locating them, he rushed to join Katie in the bathroom and, with the help of a flashlight, tried to see what exactly was happening inside her ear. In a short moment, Jordan confirmed Katie's worst nightmare. There was a giant roach trying to burrow its way deep into her left ear. Katie's mind immediately went to the worst thought imaginable. There was a roach trying to burrow its way into my brain. The 6-legged saboteur found a way to strategically infiltrate her ear. Speaking of tactical strikes, you know what else demands precision and strategy? War Thunder, this video's sponsor.
Oh yeah, we still need a rematch from last time.
War Thunder is the most comprehensive vehicle combat game ever made and is available completely free for PC, consoles, and mobile devices. Take command over an explosive amount of over 2,500 tanks, planes, helicopters, and ships of 10 major nations, from biplanes and armored cars of the 1920s to the fighter jets and battle tanks of today.
The X-ray view is impressive. It shows you where the shell actually penetrated when you got destroyed, which is important because your vehicles suffer actual damage. Like you can hit the parts and crew, which means you can disable enemy fire. Like this. Boom shakalaka!
Immerse yourself in the intense combat of War Thunder. The sounds and graphics are realistic and put you right at the helms of the most powerful war machines.
What I love is the different game modes. Like it got arcade mode, realistic mode, then there's my personal favorite, simulator mode. Wait, where'd you come from? Not again!
Join a worldwide community of over 70 million players in epic PvP battles today and delve into the breathtaking experience that is War Thunder. With an unmatched wealth of high-quality content to discover, there's simply no game better suited for fans of military history. As a bonus for starting War Thunder by clicking our links below, new players and those returning after a 6-month break for PC and consoles will receive a generous free limited-time-only bonus pack. This includes multiple premium vehicles, 7 days of premium content, and the exclusive vehicle decorator, Eagle of Valor, and 100,000 Silver Lions. Be sure to hurry because this offer won't last forever. Just like how our couple had to act fast to avoid total surrender, to remove the 6-legged nemesis from Katie's ear.
But how did it even get there?
Well, when they first moved into their new home, the couple soon realized that the house had a pretty bad cockroach infestation, which they weren't informed about beforehand. They even hired a local exterminator to deal with it and agreed to pay him $85 every 3 months to rid them of the crawling crisis. The professional bug killer would visit the house and spray the outside as well as the baseboards in every room. The couple felt satisfied, and for a few weeks, it seemed that the roach problem had finally been solved. Until that night, when one crawled right into Katie's left ear.
Maybe the little bugger wanted to take revenge on all the generations of roaches that were killed.
Well, for the sake of humanity, if that's the case, I hope that doesn't become a common practice among pests. But jokes aside, after the horrifying confirmation, the next thing Katie's husband did was try to find a way to get it out. So, he grabbed a pair of tweezers and very carefully put them inside his wife's ear. He tried finding the thickest part of the roach to get a good grip.
Wait, shouldn't they go to a doctor for this? What if they cause even more damage with all this poking around?
You're right, Grill. In fact, the reason most bugs, especially the ones as big as a cockroach, get stuck in the first place is because when people feel something in their ear, they often instinctively insert a finger and start poking around, inadvertently pushing the critter deeper inside. The worst case is when all that squishing leads to the rupturing of the cockroach.
I think I'm gonna be sick.
According to an entomologist at North Carolina State University, Kobe Schall, now you have a ruptured cockroach that's full of bacteria inside the ear. That's a straight ticket to an ear infection. As unreal as it sounds, the outside of a cockroach is rather clean, unless the roach took a pit stop in your toilet bowl before creeping up in your bed. But even though these animals do spend a substantial amount of time cleaning their exteriors, they still have a concerning concentration of bacteria inside their bodies. Another critical risk that could land Katie in a much worse situation was the roach's spiky legs. If pushed in too deep with tweezers or cotton swabs, they could potentially penetrate her eardrum, in which case the bacteria from the ruptured cockroach would then gain access to her internal ear, a scenario that would not only be extremely painful, but could also result in permanent hearing loss. Although it's best to leave any digging around in the ear canal to the professionals, Katie's husband was a professional percussionist with hand dexterity that made him better equipped for precise hand movements than most. So, for them, it was worth a shot to try removing the roach themselves and hopefully avoid a midnight hospital trip. But things didn't really go their way, as Katie recounts. Unfortunately, he only managed to pull 2 of its spiky legs off. At that point, it was clear I needed to go to the ER. So the next logical action for the couple was to get ready for their dreadful midnight visit to the hospital emergency room. Jordan furiously searched for his wallet and keys. Katie, on the other hand, was struggling to get everything in order before they left. She changed into a more decent attire and put her hair in a bun before bringing their dog to the gated area in the kitchen so it could move around freely while they would be out of the house for who knows how long.
Wow, the fact that she could get all that done with a roach wriggling around in her ear? There's no way I wouldn't just be freaking out the whole time.
Agreed. Despite the fact that she could feel a creature in her head crawling closer and closer to her brain with every step, as Katie walked to the car, she maintained an impressive amount of composure and calmness. Although it wasn't physically painful, it was psychologically torturous. Fortunately, with the closest hospital to their home only 2 miles away and there being almost no cars present on the road at 2 a.m., their trip was pretty quick. But even the short trip felt like ages for Katie, given the restless stowaway inside her head. Katie was lucky her roach incident took place at an ironically convenient hour, since not only was the traffic light, but there was also hardly anyone in the ER when they arrived. Only a woman accompanied by 2 little girls were present in the waiting room. She mustered up the strength to calmly narrate the entire situation to the man behind the desk of how a roach decided to go spelunking inside her left ear and was now stuck inside. The man then asked a nurse to double-check Katie's left ear with an otoscope, who then confirmed that, yes, there was indeed a cockroach in her ear.
Didn't she just tell them? Why do you need to double check? Just get it to a doctor and get the dang thing out.
Well, you see, Grill, hospitals are the places where you'll find some of the most bizarre cases of fabricated symptoms. That's why they usually have a standard examination procedure to see what's actually happening in addition to what the patient is telling them. There is even a psychiatric condition called delusional parasitosis, where individuals have an unfounded belief that they are infested with parasites or insects even when clinical tests show otherwise. It often leads to intense distress and repetitive behaviors, such as excessive cleaning, scratching, or even self-harm to get the imagined bugs out. And it's sometimes really hard to deal with such patients, as they can be difficult to reason with and feel untrusting of the practitioner for not taking their condition seriously. But there's another harsh side to this mistrust. Studies have shown that oftentimes in the healthcare system, female patients face bias in attempting to get a proper diagnosis. Statistically speaking, doctors are more likely to simply dismiss a female patient's concerns in the name of anxiety, and in many cases, it leads to the condition getting worse. One similar case was of Gila Leons, who woke up in the middle of the night to a sharp tone piercing inside her head. After ignoring the prickly feeling of crawling and fullness inside her ear for months, she finally decided to voice her concerns with a doctor. Sadly, due to her being clinically diagnosed with generalized anxiety disorder, the doctor dismissed her concern as paranoia. Gila insisted she take a quick look just in case, to which the doctor half-heartedly obliged. Some dry earwax, but nothing else, the doctor said after hardly examining the ear for a few minutes. Gila went home, frustrated with the practitioner's belittling attitude, and started questioning whether she should have even bothered seeking a second opinion. However, Gila never got the chance to do that before experiencing something straight out of a science fiction horror movie. A few days after the patronizing doctor's appointment, Gila was laying on her partner's chest as he affectionately stroked her hair. Suddenly, she felt a sharp prickling sensation in her right ear, forcing her to scratch. Unable to control the urge, Gila jammed her pinky finger inside, only for it to come out wet. The relief she felt afterward was something she hadn't felt in months, but the situation quickly turned disturbing when something more started dripping out of her ear. She tilted her head so her right ear was facing downwards, and a second later, warm liquid gushed out along with an alien-like creature. The couple gasped at what they were seeing. At first, I thought it was blood, a dark shape falling from my head. There, creeping on their now wet comforter, was an inch-long, brownish-gray silverfish with 2 roving antennae.
Ah, ew! So she was right the whole time!
That's right, and luckily, it was out before the situation got any worse. Back in the emergency ward, Katie's situation, on the other hand, was thankfully taken very seriously. The man behind the desk tried to reassure Katie and ask the couple to wait in the lobby until she got a wristband. Katie, feeling like she had no other choice but to oblige, hobbled her way to the waiting area with her head tilted in a way that the roach ear was facing the ground. She had hoped that gravity might save the day by pulling the invading critter out itself, and she could go home. But, unfortunately for her, that didn't work. The 2 little girls were still present in the lobby, and Katie tried very hard to keep her whimpering and trembling state under control. Despite being in a situation that could be anyone's worst nightmare, she was still considerate of the possibility that her anxious state could negatively impact the girls. After getting the wristband, it was finally time to begin mission roach removal. But before anything, she was taken to another room, where a nurse tried to take her blood pressure reading. And that didn't go as planned either. The nurse kept trying to get a reading by wrapping the sphygmomanometer's cuff around Katie's arm, but it was abnormally high. One might think that it was because of her panic state, but that wasn't all. After a few more failed attempts, Katie's patience finally gave out, and she shouted in frustration, "I suffer from high blood pressure, and am on medication for it, so there was no way you are going to get a reading that isn't stroke level." After the unexpected outburst, the nurse decided it was best to just remove the cuff. Next, Katie was asked to lie down so that her left ear with the 6-legged squatter in it was facing upwards. The doctor finally came and examined it with his otoscope, but what he saw inside was truly horrifying. Much to everyone's surprise, he confirmed that there was indeed a roach inside.
Oh my god, people, we know! Just get the damn thing out already!
The doctor asked the nurse to get him some lidocaine, which is a common numbing agent often used in minor surgical procedures and as a topical treatment for conditions like sunburn or insect bites. In this case, it was to induce temporary numbness in Katie's left ear and simultaneously kill the roach inside. But the moment the doctor administered it, Katie began to experience a feeling that was impossible to describe. She said, "The roach began to react." Feeling a roach in the throes of death lodged in a very sensitive part of your body is unlike anything I can adequately explain. Now, there was a lot that could have been happening inside Katie's ear. Some chemicals like lidocaine can make cockroaches go under a frenzy of simultaneous defecation and regurgitation until, eventually, it dies.
Come on, it's pooping and puking at the same time?
As Dr. Schall says, it emits all sorts of bacteria, fungi, and nasty stuff. But don't worry, after the roach is removed, the doctors will clean the ear of any leftover gunk, so these little hiccups should not be much of a problem. Unless, that is, you are unlucky and your doctor fails to pay attention to everything that was removed, which, unfortunately, is exactly what happened to Katie. Along with lidocaine, there are other methods to remove insects from ear canals with less excrement. Mayo Clinic specifically suggests using mineral oil or baby oil to get the creepy crawly out. For the application, you'll have to tilt your head so the bug ear faces up, and then you carefully put the oil in and hope the critter escapes or dies. If that doesn't work, then you should probably run to your doctor. 2 minutes after the unpleasant experience with lidocaine, the doctor confirmed the roach inside Katie's ear was dead. Now, it was time to take it out. Using a pair of long curved tweezers, the doctor carefully pulled out a few chunks of the roach's dismembered dead body. Each time a piece came out, the nurse and Katie's husband would rejoice and ask her to take a look as if it were a trophy. But Katie was understandably too overwhelmed at the time to pay heed to anything and anyone. She was simply counting time until the roach was completely out and the nightmare was over. The doctor pulled out a total of 3 chunks and placed them on a plate. He then told Katie that her ear was finally roach-free. By looking at the size of the chunks, the roach wasn't super big, probably around an inch long.
Does the size really matter? Come on, it was a roach in her ear.
After taking a final look inside Katie's ear to ensure everything was clear, at around 3:45 a.m., the hospital finally discharged Katie with the prescription for an oral antibiotic and eardrops. On their way back, Katie and her husband didn't feel like going straight home, so they decided to stop by Walmart to buy earplugs, just in case any other roaches wanted to try the same stunt. At home, when Katie finally lay in bed to get some rest, but her paranoia that a roach might creep onto her any moment kept her sleepless all night.
Well, at least the one inside her ear was gone.
Yeah, that's what Katie thought too, but the reality was far from it.
Wait, what?
Her ear remained numb for about 24 hours, after which she slowly began to regain sensation. To Katie's surprise, there was still some residual pain and soreness in her ear every time she yawned or put strain on it.
Seeing the usual recovery time you fragile humans need, my calculations tell me she wouldn't have a full recovery overnight.
You're right, Howard, but the only problem was that the soreness and her ability to hear out of her left ear did not improve after a whole week, and the general recovery period after removing any insect from inside the ear canal should only take a few days. It was quite concerning because now her mind was plagued with the worst possible theories of what could be causing that soreness. What if there was more than one roach in her ear? Or worse, what if the roach had laid eggs inside her before they could pull it out, and now all those little creepers were roaming freely inside her ear?
Oh, well, that's terrifying to imagine. But at least that doesn't happen in real life. Like, come on. What bug would be dumb enough to lay its precious eggs inside an ear? Hey, Brew? Brew?
Well, it's not common, but there have been incidents of insects laying eggs in people's ears and the unwilling host only finding out days and sometimes even months after the infestation. Like one 70-year-old man in Taiwan who went to get his ears checked after constantly feeling a prickling sensation in his right ear. To the doctor's horror, they discovered something that must have kept them awake that night. His ear canal was filled with not only mites, but several mite eggs. Apparently, this condition is so disturbing that it even has its own formal term, odoechoriasis.
How did he even let it get this bad?
Well, the old man had been feeling itchy in his ear for the past 2 months, but it had only been recently that he had thought of visiting a doctor. Lucky for him, the only damage he got was swollen ear tissue and debris, which is common in such cases. Had the man itched his ear too hard and caused a lesion, who knows what could have happened to the wound with a dozen mites leaving their fecal matter all over it.
Lovely. Well, that sure was unexpected, but still, mites are smaller than roaches, and there's no way that a bunch of roaches could ever fit in someone's ears, so.
Well then, you're in for a surprise, because this next case was so horrifying that it made the headlines of the national press in China. In October 2019, 24-year-old Mr. Liv was admitted to the Sanhe Hospital in the Guangdong province after he reported feeling a sharp pain in his right ear. He said his ear hurt a lot, like something was scratching or crawling inside. Dr. Zhang Yijin, an ear, nose, and throat specialist at the clinic, told Asia Wire. When the doctors looked inside his ear, they saw something that they had never seen before. The young man had an entire freshly hatched brood of almost a dozen baby German cockroaches running around in a frenzy inside his ear. And that's not all. The mother cockroach was right inside with them.
That's it. Enough ear bugs for me today. I need to go wash my brain and ears of all of this.
But don't you want to know how he got himself in that situation?
I wouldn't say want is the right word.
Mr. Liv was a snack lover, just like you, so he had a tendency to leave food near his bed before sleeping. It was a seemingly harmless bad habit, until one day, a pregnant roach who was helping herself to those leftover snacks near his bed decided to make his ear canal her incubation chamber. In the end, however, Mr. Liv actually got off easy with a dozen babies because these German cockroaches commonly have baby pouches with over 30 to 40 eggs at a time.
Well, ain't that just great? You know, I would say I regret asking, but I didn't even ask.
But this shows when Katie's symptoms did not improve even after a week, she was right to worry that any number of things could still be in her ear. Coincidentally, around the same time, she had an appointment with her family doctor to renew her medications. When Katie visited the doctor, she also narrated her recent roach experience to her. The doctor, like any normal person, was horrified to hear the story and empathized with Katie. Seeing the doctor's heartfelt reaction, Katie felt the urge to share her concern about still feeling residual pain and hearing difficulty. The doctor suggested taking a look inside Katie's left ear. When the doctor took a peek, she saw some sort of blockage and asked the physician assistant to flush Katie's ears and remove any possible wax buildups. After 4 flushes, the PA used her otoscope and took another look. What she saw inside was a shock to both the doctor and Katie. There was a spiky roach leg sticking out that could only mean one thing. The medical team at the ER didn't actually extract everything, and Katie had been living in a false state of recovery this entire time. She was beyond horrified, but urged the doctor to take it out immediately. The physician took it out and flushed her ear again, only to find even more cockroach body parts.
You know, you'd think that you'd be able to trust a doctor to count up to 6 legs before they assure you that you're completely bug-free. But hey, I guess they don't teach bug anatomy at med school. Oh, but what about Katie? Didn't she see all the pieces because they kept showing her all the pieces as they came out of her ear? Why didn't she notice that they didn't get the whole thing the first time?
You're right, Grill, but she was going through quite a traumatic experience at the time. I wouldn't expect anyone in that situation to count roach limbs that just came out of their ear. I think it was more than fair that she trusted the first doctor, seeing as it was their responsibility to make sure there was nothing left. The PA continued to remove 6 more roach pieces from Katie's left ear, but some more pieces were still left. They had slipped so deep inside the ear canal that she could no longer access them. Katie was at a high risk of developing an ear infection because, for the past 9 days straight, spiky roach legs filled with bacteria had been grazing her ear tissue. The PA understood this and immediately booked an urgent appointment with an ENT. ENT stands for an ear, nose, and throat doctor, also known as an otolaryngologist. These medical specialists diagnose and treat ear, nose, throat, head, and neck conditions, including getting rid of bugs stuck inside. The doctor gently rubbed Katie's back, who was now weeping, to help her calm down. Katie knew that this nightmare was far from over, so she went home and tried to relax for a few hours before her appointment. She began mustering up the courage to face the final boss stage of her seemingly never-ending roach ordeal. Her mind was in a frenzy once again, trying to recall what she saw on the plate back in the hospital. Did it have the head and the antenna? What could still be stuck inside? The ENT was now her only hope to put this misery to an end, but she had no way of knowing what was in store for her. At the ENT's office, Katie carefully settled herself into the fancy chair, ready to be rid of this bug problem once and for all, and began examining her ear with great attention. Katie shares how he didn't say much, but he did confirm there was still something in there. To ease Katie's mind during the process, the ENT told her how it was quite common for bugs to get stuck in people's ear canals, especially in warm cities like Houston, New Orleans, and Atlanta. In fact, a case like hers comes into his office at least once a month, and Katie even happened to be his second patient that same day with a bug problem.
But I don't get it. Why would these things want to go inside people's ears of all places, where they're just gonna get stuck in and die?
Well, as it turns out, our ears provide the ideal tight, warm space for roaches to hide in. By going into the ear, that's like a safe place to eat or rest, says Kobe Schall. And just like a moth is attracted to a flame where he'll most likely meet his death, cockroaches are attracted by the aroma of earwax, pulling them inside in search of a possible snack. With all these inviting characteristics, a roach hardly considers the risk of getting stuck and just walks right in and makes itself at home. Amidst the ENT sharing his experience, he took out a tool shaped like large scissors and started pulling the roach remnants out one by one. And the collection of limbs he pulled out, well, they could fill up a roach mortuary. Katie sobbed as the professional pulled out an entire head with its antennas attached, the whole upper torso, and more limbs than she could count amidst the tears.
Holy crap! Did the first doctor even do anything?
The most disturbing part of this third extraction was that Katie was not given any numbing agent. Every time a piece was extracted, she could feel the spiky limbs slowly grazing against her internal ear. At last, with a final ear check, Katie was declared officially roach-free once and for all. The entire ordeal was something she had never thought of before. Thus, even though she physically recovered from the roach infestation, it took much more effort for her to move on from the incident mentally. After the final and complete extraction, Katie and her husband had the entire house resprayed by a pest control company. Even though the chances of such an incident happening again with Katie were extremely low, she still couldn't shake the paranoia that it would. Since then, there has hardly been a time when Katie hasn't slept with earplugs. In her words, "I need therapy for a lot of reasons, but this experience blows all of those other reasons out of the water." Here are a few things you can do to ensure you never fall victim to bug invasions. Number 1 is hygiene. As entomologist Dr. Nancy Troiano says, sleeping in a clean bed with clean sheets is a good idea. Next, if you live in a warm and humid place where there's a deeply rooted bug situation, it's best to get a thorough sweep of your house by a reputable pest control company. Along with that, you should avoid wearing perfumes or strongly scented shampoos or lotions to bed since bugs are attracted to them. And lastly, and most importantly, you should not leave leftover snacks or sweets near your bed.
Well, thanks so much, Brew, for unlocking a new fear for me. Now, if you'll excuse me, I've got to go clean my room.
Thanks again for War Thunder for sponsoring the video. Check out the game on PC, PlayStation, Xbox, or mobile via the links in our description. New and returning users who haven't played in 6 months also get a massive bonus pack on PC and consoles. And if you enjoyed this video, make sure to subscribe to our channel to help us keep making more. Like this one about a mysterious cold case that police thought was impossible to solve until users on Reddit cracked it wide open.